did not happen in the wake of the atrocities of October 7th. Elections were postponed to the end of January 2024, and once more to the end of this month. Today, the IDF confirmed they will operate 925 military polling stations so that soldiers can vote in these elections. Significantly, 12 of these stations are located within the Gaza Strip. We must derive strength and pride. And when we read about these efforts, in the midst of everything that's happening in Israel, the pain of 237 soldiers lost, the inconspicuous or blatant anti-Semitism we experience around us, our homeland so steeped in false accusations and surrounded by hatred, Israel continues to rise above, to protect democratic values, to safeguard the integrity of its people as they fight for the survival of Israel and our nation. We hope that this and other information that we share with you on these briefings provide you with some spiritual sustenance as you continue to rise your voice in support of resilience and in support of Israel. I'm now pleased to welcome JNF-USA CEO Russell Robinson. Russell is joining us live from Israel to share with us the very latest on our efforts and your impact. Russell?
Thank you, Saul, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm here tonight with the volunteers that we have been bringing every week here, over 200 volunteers that have been coming and being part of our Build Together plan. And I just will give you a little bit of my roller coaster, which is our roller coaster journey that we've had just this week. We've met with government officials, we've met with the mayors, we've met with the people that are really building and rebuilding. We've had the opportunity to be with them at a time when they're planning for the return of the residents. And I'm very proud that Jewish National Fund is part of that because of our Build Together plan. In the next months ahead, by the end of March, over 30,000 people will have returned to their homes in the Eshkol and the Shar HaNegev region. In Sderot, already half the population is coming back. And I was there just the other day with the mayor, and I stood in front of where the police station was, where over 52 people were murdered. But I also was able to be part of today, the opening of the Sderot indoor playground. And if you didn't see the pictures, go on our social media pages, download them and share them with everybody. Because today, after October 7th, the first time it was open, our volunteers spent 2 days cleaning it up, repainting it. And today, over 600 children came there. Not only did they come there to play in the playground, for almost all of them, it was the first time they had seen each other in 4 months. They had been scattered throughout Israel. I also went to Kisufim. I was there walking and hearing the stories about this one's grandmother who was murdered sitting in her chair in front of her home. I was there when I saw the burnt houses, but I also was there with that community that I'm telling you, all of you, that in the weeks ahead, come on the volunteer mission because we are going to rebuild Kisufim. We're going to be working with Israelis. We're going to be working with the Americans that are coming on these volunteer trips. We're going to be working with the residents, painting their homes, bringing new community center to life, building new parks. And when they come back, which won't be until June or July, when they come back, they're coming back to a new community because we helped build it and because we believe in life with them. And tonight, before we came to celebrate with the soldiers that are here, that have just returned from Gaza, that are singing and dancing with our volunteers, with the special uniform band playing for them. We were at Green Forest, where the Nova Festival was, where I telling you the saddest moment when children, young people were murdered. And that's why in our Build Together plan, is a $10 million endowment fund that we're raising to provide scholarships for any child in the Israel envelope that wants to play music. They tried to extinguish us and extinguish our music there, and we'll bring it to life everywhere, every day, forever in the Israel envelope. We also added letters to a Torah. And I'll just close with this story. The contractor for the indoor playground, it's a Galilee, by coincidence, was there today. His son was taken hostage, and his son was reported to him 2 weeks ago that he is dead. Itzik was there just to spend a moment for himself. He saw the Jewish National Fund shirts. He came over, we hugged. I remember his son, when he built the indoor playground for us, used to run around. His son was a hero and was killed. We added a letter in the Torah in memory of his son, but I just want you to think of that moment. We haven't seen each other in over 10 years. He was there by coincidence. We opened the Sderot indoor playground today after October 7th. Maybe there's no coincidences. And that's the story of the Jewish National Fund.
So Russell, the social media that was put out regarding the opening of the Sderot playground is remarkable. And you're right, everybody should share that social media. We'll make sure that maybe we can put out a link to it in the chat, follow up with people to see it. And the roller coaster of emotions that you've been experiencing there is remarkable. So we're going to let you go, and your team tell everybody there we send our love, and we look forward to being there shortly. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Our next guest today is Renee Ghert-Zand. Renee writes for the Times of Israel as their health reporter and as a feature writer. Renee is a regular contributor to the Times of Israel Daily Briefing podcast and has worked as a freelance journalist contributing to a variety of online and print newspapers and magazines. Renee joins us today to share about key issues Israel has faced in the world of healthcare since October 7th. Renee, thank you so much for joining us today. Renee?
It's my pleasure, and hello to everyone from Jerusalem. I have to say it's been quite a year for me since I was brought on to the editorial staff of the Times of Israel to cover health. When I was invited to participate in this call, I was trying to think, how am I going to encapsulate everything that I have covered since October 7th. Of course, there are ongoing stories, there are breaking stories, but what I wanted to do was bring out some major themes, some major issues, major challenges, and sort of look at them in a somewhat chronological timeline. So first of all, there's October 7th, which was, of course, the largest one-day mass casualty incident in Israel's history. And everyone knows the number dead, the number taken hostage, but not so many people know that 1,600 people were injured on that day. And most of them ended up actually being taken to Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba, because that is the only level 1 trauma and tertiary care hospital in the South. And by midnight on October 7th, 676 people had been brought for care at the hospital. A huge number required surgery, and 300 required hospitalization. So the question was, how did they handle this, and rather successfully? So what they did was they had early independent mobilization, which means the hospital called immediately as soon as they knew what was happening. They declared a mass casualty event. They called in all staff, and they kicked in whatever systems they had in coordination with other hospitals around the country. They boosted staffing from outside the hospital. They brought more staff that aren't necessarily part of Soroka's system. They reorganized space and reallocated equipment to handle so much trauma at one time. And they sent nearly 200 existing patients in the hospital home, and whoever they couldn't send home, they moved to fortified areas. And within 24 to 48 hours, they sent a lot of the injured onto other hospitals to make way for what they expected to be waves of more wounded people coming in. So that was October 7th. That's an example of how one major hospital in Israel handled the situation. Now, I mentioned moving patients to protected areas. What I learned in my reporting, which was quite actually shocking, is that only 1/3 of the hospital beds in Israel are protected, and less than 1/2 of operating rooms are protected. And as we know, all of Israel's within range of rocket fire. I spoke to Dr. Rachel Rappaport, who's an obstetrician at Soroka, and she told me that on October 7th and the days following, they literally had to squish women in the maternity department and neonates all together in areas that were protected because many areas were not. And she said it was literally like, you know, she had to squeeze herself between beds to reach patients and take care of people. She recalled doing exams on women in labor and rocket sirens going off, and she had to, within seconds, get these women off the monitors, forget the exam for the moment, and move them safely to shelter. So she recalled the having to stay cool in those situations. Israel is known, though, for having the fortified hospitals we have are excellent. Rambam in Haifa has the world's largest fortified hospital. It is in its parking lot, for those who have not heard of this, but on normal days, its underground parking lot is a parking lot, but when necessary, it can be converted within hours to a fully functioning hospital for 2,000 beds, and 8,000 people can be there for 3 days without any outside help if necessary. Newer buildings, newer hospital buildings like Hadassah in Israel have built their operating rooms underground, so that even in peacetime, they're underground, so that there's no need to start scrambling if there's a war. And on Sunday, I have a visit scheduled to Sourasky Medical Center in Tel Aviv, also known as Ichilov, where they are inaugurating 10 new underground operating rooms. They have a total of 41 operating rooms, most of them underground. So we see there's a move in the right direction, and the government is providing money to help this happen. Another stop on my journey, I won't share too much with you because it's rather traumatizing. On October 17th, I visited the National Center of Forensic Medicine, and it's colloquially known as Abu Kabir. And it was really a life-altering, traumatic experience for me. That is where they took the remains that could not be identified elsewhere to be identified. And when it came down to it, they could only rely on DNA. But the problem was that in so many cases, the remains were just charred fragments. And as Dr. Nurit Boublil told me as I was there, she said, human biology simply can't withstand burning. So she was saying that in terms of how hard it is to extract the DNA. And she even brought in, many experts came in. They volunteered from abroad to help. I spoke to an expert from Hebrew University. She's an expert in DNA, ancient DNA and animal forensics, who came in for months to help try to extract the DNA. Something that hit me very hard on that visit was Dr. Chen Kugel, who's the head of the institute. He said, we were relieved to find soot in tracheas, indicating that people died of smoke inhalation and not from being burned alive. So that I will take with me forever. And most of the remains have been positively identified, but there will remain people who will never be identified. Then as we move forward in time, I met a lot of injured soldiers in the hospitals. I'll tell you about a few of them. One was named Itai, who was shot several times in his leg as he and a small group of friends in his unit were fending off terrorists on October 7th with absolutely no backup for hours upon hours upon hours. I met another Itai who on October 11th had his neck ripped open when a grenade that a terrorist threw at him exploded right next to him. And he told me actually about how he had an out-of-body experience, how he for about 30 seconds, he stopped breathing and he literally he saw what was happening around him and saw himself from outside his body. I also spoke to a young man named Yuval, who on October 7th had his leg shattered by an explosive device that a terrorist placed under his armored vehicle. And then I also had the privilege of being there when Idan Amedi, the Fauda star, that I think many people know who he is, when he met with the press after he was blown up in Gaza, and he spoke about how he was absolutely unrecognizable when he came to the hospital. They didn't know it was him. So why do I tell you these stories? Because these young men and anyone else who was injured since October 7th require hospital rehabilitation. They require inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation. And I learned that on October 7th, Israel only had 780 rehabilitation beds for the whole country. That would be for war wounded and anyone else, after illness, after a heart attack, whatever, who needs rehabilitation. And already by mid-December, Israel was dealing with 10,500 injured. And as we know, unfortunately, from the news, barely a day goes by without reports of seriously injured soldiers. So hospitals around the country have been scrambling to figure out solutions. They've opened up or expanded rehabilitation facilities. Actually, just yesterday, Re'ut Rehabilitation Center in Tel Aviv announced that it is building a campus with 450 rehabilitation beds. So that has been a huge challenge. Once these soldiers are finished with their hospital rehabilitation, there's lifetime, there's long-term and really lifetime rehabilitation. So far, the Ministry of Defense has given the designation of permanently disabled to 5,500 soldiers. That's a huge number. And they expect that by the end of this year, there will be 20,000 recognized permanently disabled soldiers. And once they are recognized, then they're moved over to the Tzahal Disabled Veterans Organization that runs Beit HaLochem centers. These are rehabilitation, sports, and recreation centers, top notch. Like, I visited the one in Tel Aviv, very impressive. There are currently 4 around the country. They're opening one in Ashdod soon. But in order to accommodate this influx of new veterans, disabled veterans, they need, just this year, their fundraising needs to go up by 40%. And I spoke, when I was at Beit HaLochem in Tel Aviv, I spoke to a young man named Eli Chayut, who is a tennis player. He's a wheelchair tennis player. Back in 2018, he broke his back in an IDF training accident, and he has been going out to the hospitals to meet the soldiers, and invite them to come check out Beit HaChayal. And he said something to me that is very, he was sort of joking, but not joking. He said, this is an organization that probably the only one in the world that doesn't want to grow. But he said the situation is what it is. And he said he's actually excited to get these younger people involved, because he says, because before October 7th, the almost all the members of the organization and those who come to the centers are 60 years old and older. So there's going to be a real change in terms of the programming, the whole atmosphere. The next subject that has come up a lot in my reporting is the psychological repercussions of all of this. As you probably know, most of us in the first month or so were walking around in complete shock. And really, initially, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis in a state of acute psychological stress. But the good news is that psychologists and neuroscientists assure us that research shows that only around 10% of those who have acute stress are going to end up with PTSD, with post-traumatic stress disorder. I interviewed Professor Yair Ben-Chaim, who is the head of the new National Center for Traumatic Stress and Resilience at Tel Aviv University. And he said that the conservative estimate is that there will be 30,000 new cases of PTSD in Israel as a result of this war. He said that's conservative because if things drag on longer, if there is a major war that breaks out in the north, who knows, it could be much higher. And the major challenge here is that most Israeli psychologists, as good as Israel's reputation is with PTSD, we actually don't have that many psychologists, relatively speaking, who are and clinical psychologists and clinical social workers who are trained in treating PTSD. So that is the biggest hurdle right now, is getting those people trained and ready to work with people. And I want to leave you not with these challenges and sort of upsetting stories, but rather some upbeat things that I have experienced and learned since October 7th. And these are things that make me proud to be Israeli and proud to be covering health for the Times of Israel right now. The first is the many Israeli med tech and biotech innovations that are saving lives, some really, really amazing things. I've had the opportunity to meet devoted and caring medical, rehabilitation, and military personnel who are caring for the wounded and their families. That is really important. It's not just the wounded, it's also their families. I've met medical staff who have not let their own pain and loss stop them jumping back in and taking care of absolutely anyone who needs their help. There was an example from shortly, well, actually, it's an October 7th example. A woman named Galilee is a midwife at Soroka. While her son was killed defending the moshav where the family lived in the south, she was helping Palestinian women have their babies. And after the shiva for her son, she returned to work immediately. She wasn't going to let what happened stop her from doing what she does best, helping people. There are those who are making sure that no one's overlooked. The IDF Widows and Orphans organization started a special program supporting pregnant war widows. It's the first program in Israel's history to do that. There are special programs supporting autistic kids who have special needs at this time. I spoke to someone on a very special 3-person committee of top medical administrators who are volunteering many hours every week to review medical evidence and determine whether a hostage is dead. And it's a horrible thing to have to do, but it does provide some closure for the families. I have written about soldiers' families who have agreed to donate their sons' organs. And finally, I have been really impressed by the 7,000 doctors from around the world, mainly Americans, but from other countries too, who registered to come to Israel at the drop of a hat to fill in for doctors who've been called to IDF duty or to help in any way possible, and some have already come and helped out. So that's what I have to say, and it's been quite a ride since October 7th.
So Renee, first of all, thank you for your work that you do and memorializing this part of the war. It's very important. And I have just one question. Do you know if this has been addressed with the IDF, the soldiers? Have they been exposed to any chemicals or asbestos inhalants in the tunnels that should be looked at or evaluated?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know specifically, but I do know I have spoken to public health physicians here in Israel who are very concerned about the environment in Gaza, both in terms of disease that can be brought into Israel. We do know of some soldiers who have picked up worrisome diseases, specific infections, fungal and bacterial infections in Gaza, and 2 of them have died in Israeli hospitals. And there are a lot of pollutants in Gaza. I don't know if specifically in the tunnels, that's something that I will look into, but there are a lot of pollutants in Israel that could be a danger to the soldiers' health and, to Israel's health as well, because Gaza is, kilometers, it's practically the same place. So there's no way to stop things from getting into Israel's water, etc.
So Renee, thank you so much for your time today. We'll continue to follow you, and again, thank you for your great reporting. Our next guest is Giora Sauls, chairman of the Upper Galilee Regional Council. Giora is a member of Kibbutz Lahavot Habashan, where he was born. He served 15 years in the IDF Armored Corps and subsequently is the CEO of several companies. Giora, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Giora.
Thank you very much to have me. I just want to add that I'm living in Kibbutz Lahavot Habashan. I'm married to Rachela. She's a kindergarten teacher. I have 4 sons and 5 grandchildren, and it's honored for me to be here this afternoon with you. In Israel it's already evening. And I will try to give you, I would say, a short brief about our situation here, and also to include some of the chronicle events that brought us to this point in the time. And then if you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. So on Shabbat, October 7, at 7:30 in the morning, we already activated the council emergency headquarters and activate the alert teams at the emergency headquarters in all of our kibbutzim. Actually, we declared a war and began to act accordingly. On Saturday night, we called on the resident, those who are not needed in the kibbutzim, to evacuate, because we do understand and expect that the Hezbollah will join this war. The call to evacuate was due to the danger of the lives of the residents in a war event in North, initiated by Hezbollah or the IDF, and we didn't know exactly what is happening, so we asked them to evacuate. And also a main reason why we done so is out of the understanding that the army must be allowed maximum flexibility to act in this region. In the first week, around 75 up to 80% of the residents of the council, about 18,000 out of 23,000, evacuated. And since we were the first municipality to evacuate residents, we managed to evacuate them, I would say, to relatively convenient places, another kibbutzim, some hotels, some resorts. The idea is that we can evacuate them together as a communities. 2 weeks later, around October 25, the state decided to support evacuation of residents from 14 of the council's 29 kibbutzim, creating a harsh reality in which some of the evacuees received state support and some did not. It means that they already not in their houses, but nobody is paying for their living there. Not like most of those that evacuate and supported by the government. Today, almost 5 months since the war began, about 11,000 residents out of 23,000 residents of the council are evacuated. I would say that around 9,000 with state support, about 2,000 without the state support. About, I would say, 4,000 are staying in hotels, because, to be with a family with teenagers with 2-3 kids in a 1 or 2 hotel rooms is not so convenient. So about 4,000 of them, of those 11,000, are staying in the hotels, and 7,000 already have found their own independent solution, rent houses or whatever. In terms of economic, small businesses are closed or have moved elsewhere. Actually, there is no agriculture, no tourism. Many companies that have been established here in the last decades have left. With the help of the funds we raised, we established welfare and education systems for the evacuees, alongside adapting the existing systems in the council communities. We instructed dozens of shelters, We instructed dozens of shelters that will be adapted as kindergartens and classrooms, because we wasn't allowed to have any kinds of educational activities unless it's in a shelter. We established and equipped preparatory classrooms all around, either here in this area and for those who evacuated. I would say that our biggest challenge these days is to keep in touch with all the residents of the council and manage about 70 communities instead of 29, because each hotel or each kibbutz they evacuate is a new community in a way, and to make sure that everyone receives the best possible level of services. The great challenge when we're looking ahead is, despite the uncertainty, to give some kind of, I would say, final picture to the events, to the war, and some kind of timetable. We owe it to our residents, and it's more than that. This is what will give the ability and desire of our residents to return home, to continue to increase the growth and the development that we have created here over the past decade. To bring them home, in terms of security, we accept we accept that the two, I would say, main threats is direct missiles fire. That's it's something new in this war. Shooting a direct missiles fire and a terrorist penetration into Israeli territory. Those two threats we demand the state and the IDF to make their best to remove those two threats from our life. That's the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, will be responsible for Hezbollah not being able to operate in the area close to the border. We are not trust either in UNIFIL or the Southern Lebanon Army to do so. We are asking our government that in any kind of agreement, the one that will be responsible for the first 2, 5, 10, 15 kilometers near the northern border to the north into Lebanon, the one that in charge to the execute of the agreement will be the State of Israel by the IDF and not anyone else. In addition to those two, I would say, security things that we are asking, we do expect that economic plan with a dedicated, significant budget for the recovery of the North and the ability to continue growth and development. I think that you are, as an Americans, and especially if you are from New York, you are familiar with the phrase, when it's getting tough, the tough gets going. So we are tough and we will get going. I would say that our working assumption is that late May or early June, and there is many reasons. If you would like, I can speak about it, but there are many reasons that bring us to this kind of working assumption that late May we will have a kind of agreement with Lebanon, between Israel and Lebanon. And Lebanon, it means the Hezbollah. And hopefully during June, we will start our journey back home. And if needed, to put our expectation, our goal in one sentence, is that we look forward to the upcoming school year starting here at the Upper Galilee. This is what we are aimed. This is our goal. And for be in a position that we can start the next schooling year here in up north, we should start to come back to our houses, to our kibbutzim, to rebuild, to reconstruct, and to be ready for it. So the idea is, or then our goal, our plan is to start the coming back home around late May or early June, and July, August will be the months that we will arrange ourselves, arrange our schools, our kindergartens. But the idea is that everyone, including the families with young kids, will come home and will start the next school year here at the up north. So this is basically, again, brief of where we are right now. And I'll be more than happy to answer if you have some question or remarks, whatever.
So first of all, Giora, thank you so much for the update and everything you do. You know, we certainly hope that Lebanon agreement that you mentioned comes to fruition. And you know how important the Upper Galilee area is to the JNF, how much we've done up there, will continue to do. And, you know, we do have, we try to support the small businesses up there with our online marketplace. Has most of the shop owners, have they been able to get through this difficult period? And is there anything more that you can tell us that you'd like the JNF to do?
First of all, maybe I should start with it, but I keep it for the end. I have to not just to say thank you, because to say thank you it's not enough. I think that the Jewish people around the world is one entity. Maybe the soul or the heart is a set of Israel, but you are the Jewish people all around the world. You are the body, you are the bones, you are the flesh of the Jewish entity. So this kind of partnership, and I have to say that I don't see it as only as a support, but as this partnership. Your representative in Israel, I don't want to say names because I know that you will be embarrassed, and your president and your delegations. Unfortunately, the last few months it was very, very hard to come here. But until now, your delegation, the people that came here to up north and talked with us and show their empathy, and of course your support. It's much more than the dollars themselves, because each dollar that you gave us actually is kind of a seed money for a big project that we done here. And even in this terrible 5 months that we already passed, your support is grateful, and thank you very, very much. And there are many, many things in terms of bringing the education back to our schools, because we need to invest big money. And some of this, the money that you gave us helps us to build those kind of schools for the people that evacuees in other places. So the range of needs it's huge, and it will be even bigger when we will come home back again around June. Important thing is to support the education, to help us with some kind of shelters, with some improvement to the kids, because it's not enough to say to our people, please come home. We should give them the reason, we should give them the incentive. And if we can create even a better facilities, if we can create a better programs for them, then we'll show them it's for you, it's good to come back. It's not only because we must, but we try to do our best that they will want, that they will be desire to come back. And with your help, we can do it.
Well, you can count on us, and as you know, in Kiryat Shimona, we're building the Culinary Institute, and there's a lot that we plan to do, and we'll bring back more tourism. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I do hope to see you face to face, to hug you, to shake your hands. Thank you very, very much for every one of you, to your support, to even to have this time to speak with me. For us, it's very important. And from our municipality, from the north of Israel, from all the people that's living here, thank you very, very much. We do appreciate a lot what you are doing, the way you're doing it. And really, we cannot wait to see you personally, hopefully soon in Israel. So thank you very, very much.
We'll be there. We'll be there. So I want to remind everyone to register for our global conference for Israel before the early bird pricing expires on March 1st. This year, our global conference will be in Dallas, Texas, from November 14 to November 17. Join thousands of fellow Zionists from around the world for a conference filled with solidarity, inspiration, riveting speakers, and so much more. Learn from the experts on how to be a voice for Israel and stand together loud and proud in support of our Jewish homeland. Laugh, dance, listen, talk, and mingle. You will come away empowered and transformed. Early bird pricing for this impactful weekend expires on March 1st. So register now at jnf.org/global. Of course, you don't have to wait until November to take action, and to be inspired, join one of our JNF-USA volunteer missions, working in farming fields, assisting in civil defense logistics, visiting wounded and evacuee families. Our missions are sold out until April, but you can still register for a volunteer mission through August for a chance to be on the ground for a deeply meaningful, impactful visit. You can visit jnf.org/volunteeril. Our next weekly briefing will be 1 week from today on Wednesday, February 28th at the same time. at the same Zoom address. And if you have a local event going on, today happens to be a lunch in San Diego, JNF lunch in San Diego. It's oversold. We're trying to accommodate everybody who wants to get in. Please attend your local events, and Am Israel Chai.